I wanted to pick up right where we left off yesterday, graphing some of these quadratics, but I saved a couple of them specifically for today because I wanted to show you how certain parts of the function can affect what you're getting when you graph. So taking a look at this one here, again, just left over from yesterday, the negative out front. I wanted to show you how that affects the actual graph. Now, when you start evaluating this thing, again, you might want to use a calculator and just be very careful about how you enter this. I'm going to have to work up here because I don't have a whole lot of room, but that negative out front is not part of the number that you're plugging in. So I'm getting ready to plug in a -1. That negative is out front in addition to the -1 that I'm getting ready to put in the parentheses here. So I've got -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 4. Now, if you set this up the way I have it written here, you should be able to type it in your calculator exactly like that. Hit the negative button, parentheses, -1, parentheses, the whole 9 yards, which gives me a -7. Okay, I'm going to go through and similarly evaluate when x is 0. And that's going to give me a -4. Okay, go through and evaluate the rest of these. -3 here, -4 here, and -7 here. Now, just like yesterday, you're going to see some repetition in these f of x values. Those f of x values are what you're going to use for your y coordinates. So at a couple of different places, your y coordinate is the same. That's how those x values can change left and right, but then your y coordinates are at the same elevation. So when I graph this one, -1, -7 is down here. 0, -4 is here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, make it easier to see. Here, 1, -3 here, and then it turns around at 2, -4, and 3, -7, right? So when I go back and I look at this, so what happened here was this negative that was out front turned the graph upside down. Instead of being a U shape up, it's a U shape down. Any of these quadratic functions that have that negative out front will be upside down like this one. So I'm going to go back to my shape tool, grab my line tool, and connect the dots here. Dot to dot to dot. All right, so moving on to the next one, I've got a similar but different type of situation here out front. Instead of having a negative, I've got a 1/2. So I'm going to go kind of the same process here, and I'm going to evaluate this. I've got half of, and I'm going to plug in 0 squared minus 4 times 0 plus 4. Okay, so when I evaluate that one, half of 0 squared minus 4 times 0 plus 4, I'm going to get the 4 out of that one. And then what I do when I have this set up on my calculator, I don't go back and I type it in each time. I go back and I just change out these values. You can go back on your calculator and edit those where you don't have to redo it every single time. So this one winds up giving me -2. This one gives me a -4. It just takes a little bit of patience. And +4 on this one. So I'm going to go back and plot those points, and something kind of different happens on this graph. 0, 4, 2, -2, 4, -4, 6, -2, and 8, 4. So what happens when you graph this, I've got this multiplier out front, the 1/2, which you kind of, when you think half, you think it's going to make it a smaller graph. It actually widens it up. So if I put, say, a whole number out front, that's going to take that and tighten it up and make it smaller. The way that these multipliers, the coefficients out front affect things is kind of opposite of what you would think. Fractions are going to make it bigger. Whole numbers are going to make it smaller. So I'm going to go back to my line tool and, as best I can here, graph my parabola, or graph my quadratic. Again, just be aware, and I'm stressing this because it's not what these things look like. Be aware that when you graph these, if you were to graph these using a computer program or a graphing calculator, they are very curved. They're very rounded. They're not sharp sharp shapes like we've been graphing here the last couple of days.